I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Most Haunted City on Earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And I'm JT Timmons.
And today we are back with another Ghostmail.
Woo!
You have Ghostmail.
Keep sending that Ghostmail. We are chugging right through it.
And boy, do they.
Yes, we love it.
We love it. We recently just got back from Washington, Georgia, and we'll get into our experiences with that in just a second and tell y'all a little bit about how that went. And then, but before we get into it, JT, you got some announcements for us?
Yes. First off, we want to welcome the new Parajunkies. So the new Parajunkies we'd like to welcome are Sophia Sandoval, Miss Sarah, Monique Kielkoff, Joe Hargroves, Ashley Bain, Patrick Welsh with the Paranormal Society of Savannah. Thank y'all for always supporting. AU, Martha Tarr, Amanda, Brandy W., Sarah Tremblay, Jerica Barcelo, and Brianna. Thank y'all so much for becoming Parajunkies, and we won't let you down.
Yeah, the Parajunkies definitely had a good time while we were in Washington, Georgia, because they got some really fun exclusive content, live streams, all the good stuff. Yeah, we did a whole private live stream investigation of Chris's haunted room, which was very
Yay,
fun.
That was
my
great.
haunted room.
It was very haunted, and we honestly can't believe he survived.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we would.
Debria definitely doesn't think.
The entire time up until when I was dropping her off at her house, she was like, "We made it. We're
alive. We're alive.
We're alive."
Oh, gosh. Real fast, y'all. Just a reminder to rate us 5 stars if you haven't already on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, just all of it. Wherever you listen to it, if there's the ability to rate us, please rate us 5 stars because it helps out a lot. And also, just real fast, the radio play release date is Wednesday, June 14th. It's official. Wednesday, June 14th. I'm going to have it ready, and we're going to upload it for Parajunkies only at first, and then we're going to kind of, talk to the Parajunkies, get their feedback before, we start writing episode 2, because we do want to turn this into a series, but, we want to make sure it works first. So it's going to be really, really cool. So far, it's awesome. Like, it's done being cut right now. It's in sound design. It's really cool. So yeah, we just got back from Washington, Georgia. How about you tell everybody how that was? Give them a brief synopsis of the episode to come.
A brief synopsis. That's a loaded question.
Yes.
Because it's a lot that happened. Overall, very haunted town. Very, very creepy. Very sweet people, but creepy.
Oh, yes.
Which is what I think they lean into, is just how eerie.
I think they're definitely embracing the idea that what they have to offer is a location wide open for discovery. We stayed at the Fitzpatrick Hotel, which is a intensely haunted building. It has many stories to it, but a lot of the stories may be beyond our scope, really, to be honest. It's sitting on top of an old cemetery. It is the site of multiple deaths. It has a lot of just austere luxury to it, because it's a big luxurious hotel. And we had a lot of interaction, more interaction than I have seen in an Estes method. Just direct response.
Yes.
Very much. We even had a moment where the ghost seemed to be telling us to go to another location in the building, and we had to pick up and go to another location just because it seemed like we were engaged in a real conversation.
Yeah, the children's spirits, which are said to be some of the more active ones in general, for sure are. And you'll see that in the episode. Yeah, from what I've gathered, because I was in the Estes method, so I I only get bits and pieces of what I am perceiving is going on, just from the words that I'm getting. But it seemed like it was two little girls. They were said to be twins, things like that.
And I was saying that because they were so close in age, as far as what we discovered about the two girls who passed in the hotel, that they were close in age. No one ever said they were twins, but of the period, two girls close in age would often probably be referred to as twins, or would certainly have that identity of they probably dressed alike. They were and they looked alike. So there was no reason, because I think they were both. We were told both under 6 when they passed.
Yeah, but it was funny though, because one of the questions I think that was asked was, how old are you?
Oh, right, yes.
And one of the girls popped through in the spirit box, and it was very distinct. I could tell which one was talking. The younger one was very persistent, and then the older one seemed to be, kind of just the overarching conversationalist. But at one point, somebody must have asked, how old are you? And one of the girls said 6, and then the other one immediately comes through no, she's 7.
Yeah, no, she's 7. Yeah.
That was wild.
It was wild. It was so weird to be on the other side of that, because, we're hearing the questions and the answers are coming hard on top of each other, and it was interesting.
But yeah, so you'll have to go and watch the episode, but they were very, very active. It felt like they were wanting somebody to talk to. The hotel spirits in general are like, oh, yay, somebody to chat with. And unlike a lot of spirits in Savannah who are just so inundated with attention, they're like, oh, I'm so fat with attention.
Right, exactly. I don't need you. I don't need to show myself.
That's very true. Yeah. That's very true. I think I was thinking that basically it's not like the Allegheny Insane Asylum. It's not like that where, they get people all the
oversaturated
time.
with,
it's not oversaturated at all. They were like, oh my gosh, there's someone here to talk to, and they were just talking and talking and talking. It was actually amazing. I was telling Debria, it was one of her first ghost hunts ever. I was like, don't get spoiled here.
Do not get spoiled.
This is not how it usually
do
goes.
Not usually like that.
Seriously.
It was very active, and it kind of brings to light this interesting thing, because the trend of haunting tourism or ghost tourism, there are hot spots. Savannah, Charleston, St. Augustine, New Orleans. Salem, that just rise to the top, because people are like, oh, well, that's the haunted place. It's like, no, there are ghosts everywhere.
Yeah.
And there are probably more compelling and more alarming ghosts in small, quiet places. So, Washington, Georgia is not really on the map for many people, even knowing where it is, much less that it has something to offer like a wonderfully haunted hotel.
Yes. And a lot. More than that, even it was like gorgeous there.
It was super pretty.
It's like that deep south look, man.
So
it was great.
So yeah, look forward to that episode, because
episodes, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's gonna be
many hours of
it's
footage.
many hours, and the Parajunkies are definitely getting an exclusive with it. But yeah, we're gonna have one bulky episode, and then maybe a part 2.
Nice.
We just really have to see how it plays out. Obviously, if it's like 160 minutes or something, then we're gonna have to turn it into a 2-parter. But yeah, we'll see what's up with it. But yeah, you want to jump into some ghost mail?
Absolutely.
Ghost mail.
Ghost mail.
Also, if you're into the paranormal, go visit Washington, Georgia.
Absolutely.
Do it. Do it.
All right. This one is from Jay Garcia. They sent in 2 stories. So the first one is called The Haunted Photo.
Ooh, haunted photo.
All right. Hey, Madison, JT, and Chris. My name is Jay, they, them, and I am from NYC. I discovered your podcast through TikTok, and I have thoroughly enjoyed them and learned more in the paranormal. Now, on to the stories. For context, me and my family are sensitive to the other side due to our grandmother formerly practicing in Santeria. If you don't know what that is, that's very powerful witchcraft and very, very potent for bloodlines. So, yeah, I can imagine that you guys are having lots of experiences. Absolutely. Now, this has led to these 3 great stories happening to us and lessons. Now, on to the stories. The Haunted Photo. When I was 2016, me and my mother had moved into a house out in Jersey. It was a lovely home in the suburbs. It had it was a 2-story house that the former owners had put up for sale. When we moved in, everything was normal, but in the room that I had chosen, there was weird things that would happen at night. At night above me, I would hear movement in the unoccupied attic, and during the day, I felt like I wasn't alone in my room. Eventually, I brought it up to my mom, and she told me to ignore the noises. I did, but it still kept happening until one day we were moving stuff into the attic. On the attic floor, right under where my room was a set of photos of the former family. Yuck. We kept it downstairs and left it with the owner's mail so we could give it to them. That same night, the movement was now downstairs, and to me, it sounded like pacing. The next day, the owner's daughter came to pick up their mail, and we showed them the photos. They were very thankful for them, since apparently they were photos with her father in them. That was when I learned that the reason the family left was because the father had passed away due to cancer, and he helped build the house upper floor. Since the photos have been gone, there has been no activity in the house, and my mom still lives there to this day. Well, that makes sense as well.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times photos can bring at least residual energy with them because it's kind of capturing someone's energy.
And it keeps them in form.
Right.
You know, old portraits are classics. When you see old portraiture
Like the
of
creepy one
people,
we got?
like, yeah, exactly. You know, when you have old portraits and old pictures, they oftentimes help a spirit define themselves. And oddly enough, it can inspire spirits that don't have form to take on a form. You know, if you have a prominently displayed painting and a spirit doesn't really have a form, it could look at that painting and be like, "Oh yes,
like this
look
one.
at the lovely picture of Mrs. Pope we
acquired
here while gallivanting about Washington." It is a frightening looking, and I'm sure she was a lovely woman. Let's not let's not go with look how terrifying this woman is, but the picture, of course, is pretty creepy.
And the scratches are from a cat, allegedly, so don't be thinking it's a demon, y'all, because I know everybody's going to be like, 3 scratches! But apparently...
the cat got to it.
The cat got to it, and the story is that the woman who gave it to us went to one of the Pope family's home, and they were like, "Oh, I don't want this photo anymore," even though it was a relative. So maybe it was Mrs. Pope who wasn't as...
Yeah. And I feel like just going back to the story, I feel like when you build something, you are attached to it in a way, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because you've constructed
you put
that
energy, sweat, tears, and time.
I built the fence in our backyard, and it's like one of my most. I'm so proud of it because like it was my first fence ever, and I did it by myself. And you know I had to do the string along the top to make sure everything all the posts were even. And so I feel like you know if I died today, I'd probably haunt that fence.
So now you know where to find JT when he dies, I guess.
Sure, he has a theater to haunt, but he's going to be hanging around a fence.
You're right.
That sounds about right.
Oh, gosh.
But we'll hop on into the next story then. This one is called The Invisible Roommate.
Ooh.
So for context for the title, my sisters and I live in our childhood home, and within our home, we have a ghost/poltergeist that lives with us. They are quite calm and mischievous. They like to hide my stuff and then place them in different places. Sounds like a fae.
No fae daddies here.
I know. I'm just joking. No, it very well could be just a spirit, but I like to assume it's a fae. I had affectionately called them our invisible roommate, and they have also proven to be able to have a good judgment on people. This is the story. For a brief time, one of my sisters let her best friend live with us, and things were chill. However, when we started dating, or she started dating, not we, they did not start dating the guy. However, when she started dating this guy, the once calm, invisible roommate became strangely more active. At random times, especially when the guy was there would be knocking heard in the walls, and the spirit would randomly appear to us. For me and my sisters, we would see spirits in different ways. One sister saw them as just a face fading away. The other saw them as blurry shadows. This would be important in the final story. And for me, I would see them as a figure-like imprint, like when you stare at a light too long and you see the light shape. Eventually, Invisible Roommate had gone rowdy to the point of taking the best friend's phone off the charger and knocking their cup off their desk. When she had ended things with the guy, Invisible Roommate had calmed down, and that was when we learned that the guy was scamming other people and taking their identities.
Oh.
Ooh, that is interesting. Funny enough, it was Invisible Roommate who showed us this by leaving another woman's social security card on top of our dining room table, right in the middle.
Whoa.
That's a guardian angel.
Yeah.
That might be your grandmother.
Right.
Because I've heard that story many times, which is being in a bad relationship and all this haunting starts really cropping up until the relationship is dissolved.
Wow.
I knew a woman who she was like, I'd never had any weird experiences until my honeymoon. And from my honeymoon until my divorce, we were plagued by these things. But once she got divorced, over. And I think it's a family member who is looking out for you,
being like, get this guy out of here.
It's fascinating because I've heard that, like, I would say a handful of times that kind of story comes up where somebody's in a relationship and the other person is diabolical, and oftentimes criminal, which is the interesting thing, because I was like, I was going to bring up criminality, but it's a part of the story. But that was the case with this woman, was that her husband was a criminal, and
that's insane.
It's just like, how
so cool.
interesting that guardian angel or family member looking over you comes in and says, "This ain't right," and how do I tell you it's not right?
Put the social security card on the table and be like,
evidence.
Get him out of here.
Oh yeah.
Well, the last story is called The Undertaker. This story is more of my sister's, but it's just as sad and creepy. Some background: my sister has always had spirits interact and help her, even when she doesn't know them. My sister was in her early 20s. She had to go into surgery for something simple. However, she had a feeling that something was going to happen during the surgery. Our family told her that nothing would go wrong, and then she went into the surgery. However, the simple surgery had turned for the worse and leading her to almost die. Oof. She was comatose for 3 days and placed in the ICU and had a breathing apparatus helping her breathe. When she was coming to, at the foot of her bed, she was at the foot of her hospital bed was a talking, blurry shadow figure. While she couldn't see a face in the shadow, she heard a voice in her head telling her that she was going to be okay and that she would be recovering well. However, at the time, our great aunt was really sick. So as my sister quickly got better, our aunt's health got worse. Eventually, my aunt passed, and a couple days later, my sister was out of the hospital. Our immediate family feels that our aunt's spirit decided to give her life so that my sister can live. However, to me, it felt like a divine being helped my sister, but a price had to be honored. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to see and hear my stories, and let me know what you think. All the best, Jay.
Well, goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Well, we had a story like this before, about a month or two ago, where, and I think it was actually a little bit darker, where there was something in the hospital room that was trying to take her to death.
Right.
And this was the exact opposite.
Right. Trying to give her life.
You know, it very well also, again, bringing up your grandmother, just because your grandmother was a known, like, very powerful witch, it's very possible that your grandmother could be kind of just the overseer of the family, Well,
and it falls into the lines of Santeria, bloodlines and familial and bargaining, making bargains. So there's a lot to go. And it might be, I wish we knew someone who practiced Santeria to talk about it, because it's a fascinating.
It is, but it's such a close practice.
It's a very close practice.
I was about to ask, is it closed?
It
seems like
it's familial. I mean, and it's such a grand example because it has a lot of absorption of culture, because it has the base of Catholic faith.
Sure.
You know, and it's fascinating because it does go in this amazing realm where it's like, do you see what a belief structure can do? You know, because in Catholicism, you'll find many people who are praying to Mother Mary more than God and Jesus. There's a whole tract. And then there's the recognition of every saint and the saint's responsibilities and what the saints can do. So there are people who carry their pendants of each saint. So there's so many amazingly culturally significant attributes to faith and how faith serves us. And in times of dire need, lots of stories of people who are visited by their faith icons, those divine beings that they cultivated a relationship with. So yeah, I'm fascinated. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
And if you go into the realm of faith beliefs, if it was some type of divine entity, it could have been a patron saint or a patron or matron, and kind of deity of some sort. But usually in the case of if you're being visited by a deity, they don't necessarily, now this very well could be because she was coming out of comatose, but usually you don't see them as shadowy beings or things like that.
It's usually light.
Yeah. So,
but that's not to say
it's
one
not
way
to
or
say
the
it's
other.
not impossible, but I lean more on the side of it could have been just a family relative of some sort, assisting in a very serious situation.
Bargaining. Although many people have claimed to have seen, the actual death, the angel of death, the Grim Reaper, or whatever you want to call it. And it's possible that death was on its way and said, oh, somebody else has stepped up. Somebody else has come in. You're okay. Don't worry about it. I'm going.
Going to get the aunt. But very sad, though. Very sad story.
Very sad.
Before history is written, it's played. Before it's frozen in time, it's fought one shift at a time. Before it's etched in silver, it's carved in ice. What happens next will last forever. The Stanley Cup Final on ABC and ESPN Plus begins Saturday.
So this next story is from Sarah Stewart, and it is titled Paranormal Story, our favorite type. Hey guys, I recently discovered your podcast on TikTok and have become obsessed. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
I love all the work that you do. I have lived in southeastern Alabama all my life and have heard some spooky things growing up. My sister and I moved to a new home on the edge of the city limits around 2 years ago. About a year later, while it was just my dog and I alone, I began hearing doors slam shut, sounds of people speaking or yelling, and my dog would look at the wall like there was something there. I would always check inside to see if my sister came home and outside to see if it was my neighbors. Each time there would be no one around. No doors shut or moved, and no television or radios on. Thought it was strange, but didn't think much about it. One night, I let my dog outside around 10 p.m. before going to bed. I have a fenced-in backyard, and behind that is a large patch of woods. Once my dog goes outside, she usually takes a quick look around and does her business. This time, however, she froze in place and began growling at the woods. My dog is a Doberman and is very protective of me and not easily deterred while in protective mode. I thought it must have been some deer or some other animal and not to think too much about it. However, I then began hearing the rustling of leaves in the woods and looked up. I saw at least 4 pairs of eyes in the woods staring straight at my dog and I. These creatures had a red eye shine, stood around 5 feet tall, and made a strange grunting noise. They were on 4 long, thin legs and had pitch black fur. After staring at us for about 5 minutes, they would walk away, stop, and walk away again until they were completely out of sight and earshot. It's like they just disappeared into thin air. They walked in unison like a pack of wolves or deer. It was extremely creepy because there were no other sounds, no wind, no birds, no bugs, nothing. I had to practically drag my dog back into the house after this experience. I've always been used to wildlife in our neck of the woods and know the kinds of things not to mess with. However, there is nothing that would be the same height, have the red eye shine, make the same noise, or be in the pack like that in my area. It could not be deer, hogs, bears, owls, foxes, rabbits, etc. Any hunter that I have asked could not imagine what animal it could possibly be.
Wow.
Please share your thoughts. Feel free to share this story to anyone or on any platform. Thank you, Sarah.
Goodness gracious.
Creepy thing.
Yeah, I'm from, I was born in Tallahassee, so very close to Southeast Alabama. And actually, it's very funny because Red Eye Film Productions, our Kiwan and I's first and main company, like our umbrella company, is named after imaginary creatures my dad used to tell me about, actually in Tallahassee sometimes, about these creatures that would look inside your window, and they had like beaming red eyes. And, that was my first introduction to horror. Thank you, Dad. And I just loved it. I loved it. And so it's just like, it's when she was painting the pictures of them, I'm like, that's kind of how I remember Red Eye. And that's why that's the umbrella of this entire podcast. That's very, very interesting. That's very interesting.
Yeah. So right off the bat, the description reminds me of the Black Dog, which is a cryptid paranormal thing that's oftentimes seen in woodlines. I think there is a couple of Black Dog stories in this area, one out on Oatland Island and one at Buttermilk Sound. So the Black Dog is very much an oversized, near wolf-like black hound. Oftentimes you only see his eyes glowing. And sometimes I think they're referred to as red, but mostly it's that dog, that animal glowing eye that you sometimes will get. What I find interesting is that it is a pack, that there's multiples. That makes it very intriguing because the Black Dog is almost always solitary when people claim to encounter it. But to think that there might be some kind of pack of these supernatural creatures out there. That's interesting.
You should read the graphic novel Bone, because
Bone.
you just described the creatures in Bone.
It's true.
Super rat creatures.
The first thing I kind of thought of was hellhounds in a way, but which would make a bit of sense of the pack-like nature. But I don't remember if she said how many there were. There were 4?
This actually, I think there were 4. I think there were 4.
4 sets of eyes?
Let's see.
Yeah.
That's why I thought
think it was
said.
4. I think it was 4. And, just while she's looking that up, I actually have just a quick story about when I lived on Rice Mill in Savannah. When I was in probably freshman or sophomore year of high school, we had this big window that looked out into our front yard, like big old window. And one night, and I don't know why I'd stay up this late, but I was up super, super late, probably 3-4 a.m. And I looked out this window and I saw the most insane looking creature low to the ground, almost as low as like an alligator would be, but also moving panther-like, and it crossed our driveway. And to this very day, I have not been able to say or what it is. And I've described it to people and they don't know. The best thing I got was panther or like a coyote, but like this thing was long and it was big, and it was way bigger than a coyote. And if it was a panther, it was a massive panther. But it was so low to the ground, like it was hunting, and it had these long strides. And I was just like, I remember seeing it, and it crossed the road and went down into the forest across the road. And I was just like, what on God's green earth is that? And I told my dad the next day, mom and dad the next day, and they were like, what, were you high? And I was like, no. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of crazy wildlife in this region, and so we had a coyote in our yard earlier this year.
Oh, really?
And it was like, oh, weird.
Yeah.
And it's because they're doing a lot of construction and clearing out the woods and the woodland. I used to live backed up to the woods. Now I have a lovely view of a construction site. So I imagine that, you can get any number of things, and there are wildcats, but you rarely see them.
They usually don't get out into the roads like that, but very interesting. So she did say there were 4 in the pack,
In the
you
pack,
will,
sure.
which is odd.
And that's
for
the 4 that you
hellhounds
can
as well.
see.
Right. But there's a lot of mythology too into the idea of hellhounds with Hecate and things like that. If you're into, the belief of deities and whatnot.
Right,
but
right. And, most of the old deities have interesting roots. There was something that led them to construct the stories and the lore that let them understand what was going on.
Now, did she say that she was shining a flashlight?
No.
Just
So they were glowing.
Yeah.
Yo.
Yeah.
Maybe there was light behind her.
Maybe.
Well,
I would love to know.
But if there was a street lamp anywhere nearby,
Yeah, if there's a street lamp, then
like
that could make the eyes red of like something.
Well, she said it was a red eye shine. So
Weird. That's very weird.
yeah.
All right.
So wow.
Yeah, thank you for sending
We
that
love a
story,
good
and that's super creepy.
We love a good cryptid story.
Yes.
But this next one is from Orla.
I like that name.
I do too. It's a very nice name.
That's Bert Crusher. Bert.
No, that's
Kreischer's.
Isla.
That's Isla.
Yeah. Close though. Mm-hmm. So this one is a quick little story. I must have been about 7 when my grandma died. I loved my grandma as a child, and when she died, I didn't really understand where she went. Apparently, I went 3 years still thinking she was alive. She would visit me on the edge of my bed. Her head would be out the window. That's creepy. Keep in mind, my room was on the 2nd floor. And any group gatherings with my mom's side of the family, she would always be there. I didn't remember any of this until recently when my dad told me he would find my diary I had when I was little, and he said I would always describe her with no eye dots. As I got older, I could recognize that it wasn't my grandma, but just looked like her.
Oh, no.
Was just asking to see if anyone else had similar stories or if you have any kind of explanation, because it keeps me up at night sometimes. Love your podcast, Orla in UK.
Goodness gracious.
Well, that is a quick but horrifying image.
I recently had a discussion about how mimicry in the supernatural world is generally not good. Generally, a spirit that tries to mimic someone you love is trying to
get to you.
Absolutely. And your belief that your grandmother was alive, or your misunderstanding, miscomprehension, is a great door for a dark entity to attempt to get close to you, try to engage you, connect with you. That's a classic.
No eye dots.
No eye dots, like pupils.
Yeah, no pupils.
So it's
no
just
pupils.
white or black or
Now, I just know for a fact that if your grandmother, who loves you lots, is going to visit you, she will make sure she has pupils.
Yeah, she'll put her eyes on.
Right.
She'll put her eyes in. She'll be like, God, can I have my pupils back so I could?
So I don't want to.
So I can swoop
Frighten
in
my
and
grandchild.
frighten my
Goodness
child.
gracious.
But and that is, it's interesting because this is something that comes up in a lot of folklore, is that when the mimics come, when a demon tries to look like a human, they can't get it quite right. That's the
Right.
Platt Eye story.
That's the
So
scary-
Platt Eye story is that they look like a human, except they can't get it quite right. So oftentimes they only have one eye, or there's something disfigured about the person. So and in part it is because by law a demon cannot fully imitate somebody who has the grace of God. They just cannot, because humans ideally were given life through this divine force, and so a demon can't fully do it. And so there are lots of stories about the Two-Face where they're perfect on the front, but in the back they're all messed up.
Yeah.
Because they put all the imperfection behind them, so they'll always face you. So no matter what you do, they don't want you to see past the facade.
Right.
Now,
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
why would, if that is her, let's say it is her grandma, right? Why would her grandma choose night to visit? Like, I feel like when my Nini dies, and if she wants to come visit me, I feel like she's going to do it in broad daylight and in a really sweet way.
It's just not that easy.
Or she'll just leave me pieces of things, right?
So that's a great question. The truth of the matter is, spirits use the same mental and spiritual energy that we do. And when everyone's awake, we're all gobbling up that energy. Mm-hmm. And so spirits don't necessarily have enough. And that's why I always say, like, daytime ghosts are usually very powerful. If you're seeing a ghost during the daytime, if you're having experiences during the daytime, they are swimming in the channels of all the living minds that are eating up that psychic energy. They are actually powerful enough to sit at the table with everyone else. But late at night, especially that 3 o'clock hour, where most people are asleep, that watering hole is wide open, and then the spirits can come, and that's why even the loved ones will come at night, not because they don't want to, or not because they're not there during the day. It's because they can't really show themselves while everyone else is occupying space. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, we tend to forget that ghosts don't have anything like a body. They don't have anything. You know, all they are is an energy. And it's dampened by the more people. And we talk about this with ghost hunts. If you bring too many people on a ghost hunt, you're probably diminishing your odds, because all that activity, all that mental activity is really going to create issues. So if you do bring a large group of people, break them into small groups and send them as far away from each other as possible, because the more people in an area, the less psychic energy there is for the spirits.
Yeah, I definitely. I think that, you know, there's very little that you can draw like conclusions about ghosts, but I think what you just said basically draws that conclusion that ghosts are going to appear more at night because more people are asleep, consuming less energy. Mm-hmm. And I can't really imagine a world where we would be talking to those two little girls at the Fitzpatrick two nights ago during the day.
Yeah, it would have been a different experience. Although, you know, it also, we were lucky enough to be alone in the Fitzpatrick.
That's true.
Yeah.
So, you know, there could have been, you know, any number of things. Although there were many stories in the Fitzpatricks about objects moving, not just moving, but being flung about. Mm-hmm. And so I think there is a powerful entity that we actually did not come in contact with. Because I don't think we came in contact with a spirit that was strong enough to throw things.
Right.
But it was in the building. Yep. You know, I have no doubt that there was. So we will have to go back for the object chucking ghost.
Yes. But yeah, well, I'll tell you, like, my grandmother, when she passed away, when I was little, I would tell my parents that she would come to visit me at night, and they'd be like, well, how do you know it's her? And I'm like, she would come in through the light in my window. What freaked me out about your story was that her head was sticking out the window. So almost like she wasn't fully able to fully enter,
which is also kind of indicative of trying to get that connection. Mm-hmm. You know, in a lot of folklore, you'll hear, well, I guess it's primarily in vampire lore, you will hear that you have to invite the thing in, and without that invitation, so looking like your grandmother is a great way to get an invitation. Oof. You know, you disguise yourself as a loved one, and then you go to the most vulnerable. You go to the child,
exactly,
and the child's like, "Yes, come in." You know, come be here. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack, and yeah, it was very concise but very frightening. Mm-hmm. You know, it's very solid.
Creepy story.
Creepy story.
Big yikes.
Big jikes. So this next one is from Alexis Limkey. Mm-hmm. 2 stories of paranormal activity.
All right.
All right.
Yes.
So, hello, I am Alexis Limke, and I just started listening to your podcast, but I love you guys, your guys' content. To give context and a little background, my family on my mother's side has a long lineage of magical and spiritual women who are all connected to the other side. My own gifts include seeing spirits and feeling their presence, and have been familiar with death since I was a child. My experiences started early when both my great-grandfather and my father passed when I was young, 2 and 6 years old. I have been to and have lived in many haunted places, and here are some of my stories. The first story takes place in a house in Winter Park, Florida, which is outside of Orlando. For those of you who don't know where that is, very haunted area. Middle Florida is very creepy, which had many spirits, both playful and harmful. One morning, my brother and I went to go to our designated playroom when we both froze in our tracks. A tall, slender shadow with a top hat. Oh boy, a hat man coming through.
Oh boy.
And a long face stood in the doorway. We didn't move as we watched it move from the doorway across the walkway and through the wall connecting to my grandparents' room. Moments later, my grandfather angrily ran out of the room yelling that someone was tickling his feet. Ugh, ew, ew. I hate a foot tickler. Hate that. Waking him up from his sleep. To say the least, we moved out of that house real fast before we became a screenplay for a horror movie. The second story happened years later in a house in Lakeland, Florida. This house had the spirit of a little girl who we named Emily and made her presence known playfully and often. So my best friend and I would stay up till 3 a.m. talking about normal girl things on the regular. Well, one night as we were winding down, we heard what sounded like a plastic cup dropping in the kitchen. We were worried that my little brother fell when he was getting a glass of water, since he was known to wake and go into the kitchen for food or drink late in the night. However, my friend and I both agreed that we had the feeling it was something much more paranormal, since it was the witching hour. As moments passed, we finally gained the courage to go check the kitchen and get a cup of water for ourselves. We reached the kitchen only to find that nothing was out of place. Now freaked out, we ran to our room and agreed it was time for bed. Not even a minute later, we heard the same bang in the hallway right outside the door to my bedroom. We immediately rolled over and went to sleep, ignoring the presence of the ghost. This house was definitely interesting in my childhood because as my spiritual gifts were developing. There were many nights where I was woken up from my sleep to find that the clock read exactly 3 a.m. We moved from the house in 2016, but to this day, my family has had many other paranormal stories throughout the years. Thank you for sharing my stories and have a nice day. Sincerely, Alexis Limke.
All right. And then she sent like another small,
the quick little thing that she sent immediately after. To add to this ghost story, I was actually watching the Hat Man episode to realize that the first story included in my Ghostmail was actually a Hat Man. That is such a crazy coincidence.
Yes. Sounds like a Hat Man.
It was definitely a Hat Man. I mean, both of those sound very classic. First off, Hat Man, very classic, just man in the doorway, just the watcher spirit that we've talked about so many times with the Hat Man. Yep. The second one sounds a bit more like poltergeist or like very borderline poltergeist activity. It's like that noisy ghost sort of deal. It was very possible that you guys just heard the ruckus that it was creating and then it realized when you were awake, they were like, oh, now I can go bother these people or whatever it is, It didn't sound to me like anything malicious. It was just probably just whatever the ghost was feeling up to in the night or practicing its moving object skills, I guess, because a cup falling over, I can imagine a plastic cup, pretty simple for a ghost.
I mean, he put it back.
You would think.
So good for him,
yeah.
right?
It was like practicing its telekinesis skills.
Right.
So it was like, zip.
Right. Every now and then you'll hear stories about spirits that clean up, which I'm dying to get one in my house.
Right?
It's like you hear these ghosts that, the ghost did the dishes. I was like, what?
I don't get those.
I'm over here with a screaming, bleeding skull, and you get a dishwasher?
It's so true. When I was at Oglethorpe House, there's a ghost in that dormitory that there was in one room where there was like the story of this kid who during finals week fell asleep at their desk with all their art projects splayed out everywhere, and they woke up and everything was in like nice little piles around them. And I'm just like, I could use that so badly. I am the queen of doom piles. I need
I need an organizing ghost.
I need an organizing ghost.
Executive function ghost.
Please executive function for me. So it's it definitely sounds like, if this little girl spirit is actually a little girl spirit, then kids do the darndest things even as ghosts. So
absolutely.
But thank you guys so much for sending in your stories. All of these were super interesting and creepy. So thoroughly creepy. So hopefully y'all enjoyed listening to them. If you have a ghost story that you want to send in, you can send it to us at ghostmail@hauntedcitypodcast.com. Also, feel free to send in your hometown stories. If you have a ghost story from where you live, it doesn't have to be specifically to you, just if you know that one haunted house that everybody talks about.
Right, local legend, local lore, the kinds of stories that kids tell, the house that you don't trick-or-treat at, all that good stuff.
Yeah, send it in.
Let us know about it. And also, if you have any questions about the paranormal or spiritual nature,
send them on in.
Drop us a line.
But with that, thank you guys so much for listening. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And stay spooky, y'all.